Correlation does not imply causation. I'm quite confident you've heard that piece of advice before. However, I highly recommend that you don't take it at face value. If you want to learn more, join me this week and let's dive a little bit deeper. Like saying the same word repeatedly after we've heard an aphorism so many times, we take it for granted. And that specific piece of statistical advice has been used so many times by mathematicians, scientists, and the general public that it collapsed itself into a cliche. And the problems with cliches is that we end up using them without even understanding where they came from. So what's the fuss with correlations anyway? In a world in which most of our decision-making processes rely on artificial intelligence fueled by historical data, correlations should steer us in the right direction, right? Not necessarily. Bear with me. A few years ago, Crash Course did a fantastic sketch on the Cool Cage Act. Someone noticed a strong correlation between Nicolas Cage movies and a spike in aircon sales with drownings. And the idea here is that if one wants to mitigate drownings, they only have to cancel Cage movies and propose a ban on air conditioning. This was obviously fictional and a joke. But jokes aside, the absurdity here is to link these variables. They don't cause one another whatsoever. The thing here is aircon sales skyrocket in warmer months. Same as people going out for a swim, which leads to more drownings. These are called spurious relationships, and they occur whenever two or more events are associated but not causally related. And if you look close enough, you can find correlations between consumption of margarine and divorce rates, and even consumption of cheese and accidental deaths. But before we go out on the streets marching for a national cheese prohibition, let's understand why this happens. Sometimes these are mere coincidences, but quite often what we're failing to see here is a lurking variable, which simply is a variable that you didn't account for. Like in the previous example, what we're failing to acknowledge was temperature. A rise in temperature directly influences both AC sales and drownings. By unmasking that lurking variable, so you can properly focus on the problem you're trying to solve. Quite some years ago, Kinari Webb was trying to save orangutans in the forests of Borneo. After some pretty intense research, what she learned is that the orangutans were suffering because locals were cutting down the forest in a haphazard way. And after a little bit more digging, she realized that the logging happened whenever a local family member felt ill and needed medical treatment. The locals were cutting down the orangutans' habitat just so they could sell the materials to afford private healthcare. So Kinari went out on a mission to build a local health clinic. And after she did, logging dropped 89%, effectively saving the orangutans. We know that relationships are important. The way things interact are much more powerful than the things itself. And seeing correlations between entities can be a superpower if you acknowledge your inherent biases. Digging deeper and finding those lurking variables is what differentiates superstition from science. So the next time you get a gut feeling that there's something hiding behind a correlation, beware. Maybe there's something lurking there. Thank you so much for joining me this week. I'd love to hear your stories on correlations and causations. And as a new channel, it will mean the world to me if you just drop by a comment and say hi. And as always, see you next week.